This is the Backlog Podcast with Kevin Lane, bringing you weekly discussions on gaming as well as quick insights into sports, entertainment, and anything else that they can think of. Be sure to check out the backlogexposed.com, where you can listen to the podcast and get links to Twitter, Discord, YouTube, and Facebook. Now, gear up and get ready because this backlog is about to be exposed.
And we are live, the Backlog Podcast, episode number 62, and to my left and right is nobody, and there's a special reason for that. So I want to talk a bit about that and about what the stuff I've been posting in, for example, I've been talking a lot about season 2 of the Backlog Podcast, and you might be wondering what that really means, and you didn't know podcasts can have seasons on like just a random show like mine. So the Backlog is really just a bunch of friends who were chatting one day about video games. And if you couldn't tell, I love to talk. Those things kind of mesh together. And originally, back in 2017, a couple of us, I think the original intention of this podcast was going to be me and Joe and Jason, who you've heard on the podcast, and my buddy Jed, who is the one we talk about, who moved to Italy. And some people are into this stuff, some people are not. It's pretty quick to find out the people who aren't into it. Like Jed wasn't eager to do this. He helped me out. He got on an episode, but he wasn't super like gung-ho. He didn't care as much. And then you have people like Jason, who anytime he's available and I ask, he says yes. And he jumps on and we have some amazing conversations. And sometimes it goes way too long, 2-3 hours. And I've had really, really fun time with Jason. But the one who really jumped into this with me head first into the deep end was Joe. And, he goes by William, he goes by Joel. I call him Joe because it's fun. And that's just what I like to do. And Joe is one of the nicest and the coolest people I've ever met in my life, especially as you get a little bit older, and maybe as you run into people along the way, you become more and more, or I become more and more hesitant to just let people into my life. And so I don't know why that is, but it's probably a culmination of everything that's happened to me. I'm sure that's exactly what it is. And so when I met Joe, it was through my wife and someone she worked with, Joe's wife, Leanne. And it was like instant. We bonded. Instantly. And we talked about doing the podcast really quick into our friendship. And the rest is kind of history in the sense of we did it. He and I were the ones who stepped up. We said, we're going to get this thing done and we're going to get it started. And it was about a year ago, in the first week of July of last year is when we started episode 1. Now, if you look online and you try to find the statistics of that, I couldn't even find it because we started off on a website called podcasts.com. And it's free to do your podcast. We didn't know, for weeks I researched, like, where should we do this? Is it Amazon hosting? Is it, through Podbean or, all these, there's hundreds of sites now where you can go host your podcast. And whenever I see something that's free, I question why, like, how are they making money? And so we jumped into, I just did it because I wasn't sure, but I wanted to test it out for a week. And I said, Joe, let's do this. One day we just did episode 1 and it was on podcasts.com. We got 150 listens. I went on Facebook. I had posted about it, and a lot of people that I know on Facebook, they clicked on it, they watched it or listened to it, and we got good feedback. That was fun. That was interesting. And then episode 2, we jump in. I posted on Facebook. We had like 180 listens. Now, from what I understand, and maybe these stats have changed over the last year, You have 150 listens on your podcast, you're doing as good as half of the podcasts out there. The average is 150 listens. Now, granted, some podcasts are doing 10,000 an episode, 100,000 you know, some of these podcasts are just insanely big, and some of these podcasts are broadcasting to 10 people. But regardless of how many people you're broadcasting to, I just look at it this way. If I had 10 people sitting in front of me in a meeting room and I'm talking and they're all just listening, no one's talking back, no one's saying I shouldn't be talking about what I'm talking about, and they all just listen. And every week, those same 10 people keep coming, and eventually it's 12 people and 15 people. We may lose a couple, right? It might go down to 13. One day it's going to grow to be a lot bigger. The more you do it, the better you are at it, unless you're me and it's audio, right? I laugh about that a little bit, but sometimes I don't laugh about it, and because it's really, I take it seriously, probably way too serious. I don't make a lot of money or anything doing this, and Joe and I never really did the podcast for the money. You know, I have a good job. I don't really want to risk or get too ahead of myself and think that this is going to one day supplement my income. If I make any money off of this, that's not the intention. It'd be pretty cool. So it's a passion. I was talking to somebody today, Jennifer Beeston, shout out to her, because she's part of the network, something we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I bartended for a long time in some of the busiest areas of America, in Bourbon Street, and you meet a lot of people. You do a lot of talking as a bartender, or you don't have to. There's a lot of bartenders who just, what do you want? Here's a beer, bye. But because I love talking and I love building relationships and friendships and things like that, it kind of came natural to me. And people would come back, and you get your customers, even on Bourbon Street, where the turnover rate of your customer is they're there for 3 days and they're gone forever. I'd have people come back every day, every time they were to get a drink. Some people wouldn't. I'm sure some people hate being talked to, but I love making people feel welcome, and I love getting into discussion. So podcasting for me is natural. It's a passion. It's therapeutic for me, and I love it. I enjoy it more with somebody to talk to, but I don't have to. I can do it all on my own, which leads me to why Joe isn't here. Now, Joe is, I always call him the talent, and Joe is a lot of fun. He is, just like I said before, one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. And he started getting a taste for the streaming, being able to jump in and play the games, because he's a gamer, I'm a gamer, but he's like a big kid at heart, And so when he gets in there, and if I'm watching him, I sit and watch rather than play with him. I'd rather sometimes do that. And so I stand behind his decision wholeheartedly, because I honestly believe that that's where he is best suited, is to be in front of everybody on camera. Now, granted, it's awesome to get his viewpoints on everything. In my opinion, some of the best talks we've ever had have been on this podcast. And so I think that we'll miss that. But it's not like he's gone. He's still my friend, still close friend, and we're going to have him on the podcast. If he doesn't come on the podcast to talk or to recap some things that are going on, then I'll just consider him Calzone OP. You hear me, Joe? All right. So joking around. So I don't. There was some times where I had to do the podcast myself throughout the way, and I just reached out and I got help from people that were interested in doing podcasting. And even in the last week, without even knowing that Joe's gone, I've received several people reaching out saying that they want to be part of the podcast, they want to talk, they want this and that. And hey, Bartsy, thanks for the follow. And so, it's exciting to know that there's interest in what I'm doing, what we were doing. And I consider this all, to where we are today, it's a team effort. Joe helped me get here. We did it together. We built the brand. And now this brand is going to move forward while Joe builds his brand. And we're going to reconvene but I suggest that you do follow him on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. He's starting to climb. I mean, a couple weeks ago we were talking and he had 30 people following him. A couple weeks later he has 130, 140. He's popping off. He's affiliate, and once people start to get to know Joe even more, they're going to fall in love, and they're going to, he's going to take off. So that leads me to Alex. I mean, we had Alex on, I think it was last week and the week before, and it's like, hey, this new guy's coming to the podcast. He went and bought a microphone and this and that. I know Alex through Joe, and Alex is a funny guy. I'm going to ask him to probably be on the podcast more often than most people, because he was into it. But in the whole scheme of things, as things kind of moved forward in the last week, I just been thinking a lot about all the work that goes into this. Is a lot of work, and I have been focusing quite a bit on it. The audio engineering, which I'm not that good at, but in all intents and purposes, I can manage it. It's just I make stupid decisions at the final hour and try something new thinking it's going to work, and then I spiral out of control, and then I have to go live and there's an echo or this or that. So it's really just me being able to calm down or sit down and get it all right and then follow through. But I want to have like sound bites and stupid voice changers and all this stuff, and the second I start dabbling in that, it never ends up good. So I need to do it offline, and I need to focus on it myself. See how the chats are going. So with all that, Joe is moving on, and he's going to do very good. And I hope that he tells people about the podcast. I have no reason to believe he wouldn't, and I'm going to do the same for him. You're going to hear about Joe. I'm going to talk about his adventures and his fun and all that great stuff. And you'll miss him, but you won't miss him, because I'm gonna bring him up. So I mentioned the network, and what is that all about? For those who are listening as, just listeners, just fans and whatever of the show, the new listeners or old listeners who have been subscribed to us for a while, what we're doing, what we started to do, is to do this live on Twitch. And if you're not familiar with what Twitch is, and so this isn't just to the people watching me on Twitch, but if you're not familiar with what Twitch is, it's a live service where you can play video games or talk and chat. There's quite a lot of content that's on Twitch. It's not just people playing video games. And so we started putting the podcast live just a couple of weeks ago. We've been talking about it for months, and we decided just to go with it. And it's a lot of fun, because when we interact live with the audience, we can get really quick feedback, which not a lot of podcasts get feedback, which is it's a shame. You go on to like any review, any like iTunes or something, and you look at the reviews on a podcast, that podcast can have 100,000 listens and like 32 reviews. It just doesn't really correlate. It sucks. And so it's really important to give feedback on YouTube, on whatever. If you really like content, if you find yourself going back to people, you gotta click the thumbs up or whatever, because that's super, super, super important. What up? And so I am working with a bunch of different content creators from all over the place. It started with an idea of like, and I'm going to be completely transparent with everybody. It's really hard to promote yourself, depending on who you are, depending on what you do. And so Joe and I were a podcast about games. I'd go on to the places I knew to go. I went to Reddit, and I'd go to the gaming subreddit, and I'd say, hey guys, got a great new podcast that I'd love to get your feedback. And you just get tore up. I mean, hey, fuck off, get out of here, we aren't interested, stop promoting your shit. And it's just like, it's very disheartening to like hear that all the time. And so you'd go somewhere else and you'd suggest, or anywhere online, right? And it's pretty hard. I went on Facebook. I talked about it just a few minutes ago on Facebook. Our first 2 episodes did really well. Well, our 3rd episode got 3 views, or 3 listens. And that was the only place we had put it, was on Facebook. And it was like, whoa, 180 to 3? What's going on here? Were the stats broken before? And what Facebook does is the second they realize that your content takes them off of Facebook, so they're clicking a link and they're leaving Facebook, well, now they block you. It's called shadow banning or shadow hiding or whatever. They don't tell you. They just hide your post. And then they send you a message telling you can pay to now promote your post. And it's really backwards way of doing things. I mean, you spend your lifetime building a brand. Like we're all, I mean, in the eyes of all these companies, we're a brand. Walmart, Facebook, Costco, we're a brand to them. We're all our own individual brands, but you know, if you have 800 people on your Facebook friends list, in my opinion, you should be able to speak to them. And now you can't, right? You can't. Maybe it's a good thing for the general masses, so everyone's not shooting their own advertisements every direction, but it's just kind of, it sucks because I'm not making money off of this. I just want people to hear. I just want people to hear it. And you go everywhere you go, it's like you're not allowed. And I've been talking to a few people about this over the last couple of days. I ran a t-shirt company for 10 years. If you go online and you post, if it's funny, people let it go. If it's not funny, people trash you. But people walk around with Nike shoes, brand logos, Under Armour, hats, this, that, the other thing. I have never in my life encountered somebody in person who wasn't interested or was very rude to me when I mentioned I ran a t-shirt company. 10 years. Most people were like, tell me more about it. I'd love to hear. Right? Almost universally, I would get into conversations because someone would say, oh, he does t-shirts. And then someone, oh, you do? What kind of t-shirts? And I'd pull up my website and I'd show them. And we would go at it, talking about ideas. I mean, the randomest things. It started so many conversations. Never once has anyone ever said to me, hey, look, pal, this isn't the place to discuss your t-shirts. And so when you go online, maybe people are just super nice in person, but I'm not buying it. There's just this thing online that perpetuates this anger towards anyone trying to get ahead, anyone trying to do anything. And I don't know if it's conjured or conspiracy or whatever, but the reality is most people aren't adverse to hearing a little bit about what you got to say. And so what I wanted to do was create a community of people like me, whether you're big or small content creators, whether you just have a little podcast speaking to 5 people or, you know, a YouTube channel with 100,000 people. Everyone can benefit from networking or learning or opening up your ears or helping others or whatever. It will benefit others more than some. And some people won't get any benefit at all from what I'm trying to put out. But it's free and it's a network of people. And we have a really, really great group. I'm going to run down the list of the people so far who have decided to partake in this. And we're going to hear more about these people as I move forward in the podcast. And we're going to bring some of them on. And some of them have been on. So first we have, and let me do this alphabetically so no one gets bent out of shape. I have it sorted by the people I like the most at the top, so I had to fix that. No, I'm just kidding. So, you know what I'm going to do first is sort by group. And then, yeah. So we have a couple of individuals represent groups. And some of these groups are getting kind of big. They're moving up. They're growing because of their own dedication. So last week, I think it was, we had Unruly from Arctic Games. So Arctic Unruly, he joined us on the podcast, and he's a young up-and-comer, really looking to make an impact on the COD scene, Call of Duty. That's his style, that's his theme, that's his content. He is a streamer, and he has a goal and a game plan, and he's trying to make it happen. And so he's part of this network. Will he become a pro? I don't know, but I want to follow to find out. I think he if he has the determination to do so, I think he will. Next, we have Cutscene Cutie, and she goes by Cutscene Cutie, but her real name is Courtney. And one of the things I did over the last couple of weeks, or probably since April, was I blasted 7,500 people with invites or friend requests or whatever on Instagram. And I'm a little bit old, so I didn't get into Instagram until April, and I wanted to become a Fortnite content creator for my son. And you need 1,000 followers to do that. I had 0. And so I pushed and added, and then waited and added more, and then waited and added more until 1,000 people followed me back. One of those people was Courtney. And Courtney has been streaming on Twitch. She does late night type streaming, and she does 64-bit, Nintendo retro, all sorts of stuff. And at first, I went to her stream because I saw, she was clicking like on some of my stuff on Instagram, and I was clicking like on hers. And you see that she's live at 4 a.m, and I'm not sleeping. So I'm like, boom, that girl is absolutely hilarious. Okay. She's funny, and she's interactive with her crew, and they love her, and you can tell. And so she was like perfect for this type of networking, because once somebody sees that girl, she's going to go far. Then we got Team Emar Gaming, right? You've heard about that since day one, but I want to talk a little bit about what that is. Joe and his buddy Adam, which you've heard thousands of times on the podcast, started this team. And it was really just about them. And it was about playing Call of Duty and games like that. And they grew. They grew to different games. They grew to adding new people to this. You got Joe's wife. You got Alex, you got myself. And so all those people are part of the network. And now Joe is focusing on that for his stream. So I don't need to go into too much detail because I've already talked about that a bit. And then we got Leaky Squad. All right. Team Leaky is the group that actually kicked me into high gear on Discord. Not that they personally came to me and said, Kevin, you need to focus on Discord, but they invited me to theirs. And I get on their Discord, and a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, this is the kind of stuff that I need to be focusing on and learning. And this is how I can grow this network idea that I've had in my head. And so far we have 6 or 7 people, 8 from the Leaky Squad. We got Acid, we got Chopsticks Ninja, we got Clean Rugs, Cushy Nugs, Leaky Crawfish, Reaper of Hugs, Wily Coyote, and Tuxedo King. All those guys have been awesome. They've been popping in and out of our streams. They've been, giving us feedback, tips, support, help on Discord. They're a great group. And, I'm tweeting out their information and stuff all the time. And so definitely don't hesitate to seek them out. They're awesome. And then my cousins, and we talk about them quite a bit, but Ricky and Buddy run the MMA Marks podcast. And they have grown. They went from wondering if they should do it to now they're chatting with UFC fighters on Instagram. They've done a phenomenal job of growing their social media and really targeting a specific group of followers, and they're getting engagement on their Instagrams and stuff that are just really, really good. So while his first hesitation, Buddy's was like, I don't know how I'd fit in on the network. We're an MMA podcast, you're a game podcast. Well, I know a lot of gamers who like MMA, and a lot of MMA people like video games. So to me, it's a hands down easy answer. And so they can network, they can talk to others, they can have people on their podcast if they want, or be on other people's podcasts or whatever, or they can just learn, listen, open up, and find other people that they might be able to learn from and grow their skill sets. And then we have Ice Toki. I think that's the way to pronounce it. And she plays League of Legends. She got a big following. She is really, really good designer. Like I guess she hand sews a lot of her cosplay type outfits, and she posts about that stuff on Instagram. She's a really, really nice person. And when you go to her chat, even if there's a lot of people there, you kind of feel like you're not just a number or just a person flying by. She actually pays attention to the group of people. And that's really important, especially when people are starting to grow. It comes to a point, to be honest, that it's impossible to keep up with your entire chat. I mean, there's a guy named Tifu. He is the #1 overall Twitch streamer as an individual. And, 90,000 people in his chat. He can't keep up. He can't even keep up with all the tips. He has to wait, an hour and then go over the list for 10 minutes and then come back. It's nuts. But especially as you're starting to grow, it's really, really important. I try to focus on that myself, and it can get a little overwhelming at times. Joe's already seen a couple of raids, which is, a Twitch streamer can take all their viewers, and if they're done for the day, they can send them somewhere. And all of a sudden now you could be having 5 people watching, and then you have 30 people watching. And for someone who's just getting started on this stuff, that can be a little overwhelming and a lot of fun too, because, it's like you're in the weeds all of a sudden. You got to keep up with chat. You got to do this, that. You're trying to play the game. So someone I met today, Icy Chiller. Now, he is a esports. Let me just make sure I get this right. He's like a retired esports player, right? Halo and a bunch of other games. Now he sticks to he has a job in the industry in that area, and I need to learn a little bit more about him, but he seems to be a pretty good dude, and I'm going to be working with him and talking with him about how we can integrate some esports chat and content into this podcast, because I find that to be, it's the next generation of sports. These kids that are growing up today that are 4, 5, 6, that's what they're going to really be invested in. And, sure, there's still going to be the NFL and the MLB and NHL and all that, NBA. That's not going anywhere, but it doesn't mean that another batch of things can come up on the side. And you hear me talk about Fortnite esports, and we have had Unruly on with Call of Duty. So it's pretty obvious to me that having that kind of content on a gaming podcast would be pretty critical. And I want to integrate that in a much heavier manner. And I've been thinking about that for a while, and all of a sudden I get reached out to by Icy Chiller, and I look at his profile and I'm like, all right, light bulbs are going off, and I can't wait to learn more about him. We got JD Max. Now, JD Max, I've been involved in a chat group on Twitter for quite some time, kind of the group that sparked my interest in a network in the first place, because it was a group of like-minded people. All of us have something going on, and it was a lot of fun just chatting back and forth about what makes their content pump out, and how they review games or this or that. And then I came up with the network idea, and the rest is history. So JD Max is here now. He focuses on car racing simulation. So he plays VR, and he's got the real setup, and he's a pretty solid racer, VR racer. And so you can check him out. He's got a lot of skill set there that people like Joe, who love the car racing games and stuff. And this guy's in the middle. He's in the middle of playing it, and it feels like you're in the car with him. It's nuts. Last week, I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Scott Cooper, who is the host of the Millennial Nerds podcast. And I want to get into this after I talk about all the people, but I went to the Ocala Comic-Con last week, and it was a blast. I've never been to a Comic-Con, so if you've ever thought about going, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun. This was a smaller one, but it was still a lot of fun, and we had some famous people there, and we had a lot of competition in terms of cosplay contests and things, and people went real deal, like some serious costumes. I tweeted some of them out. I posted some of them on Instagram, and it wasn't just like Halloween costume makeup. This was some serious stuff. Let me do another little tweet out. So Scott and I had a really good talk, and he has a really, really good mindset for podcasting and content creation and things. And so we're going to be working together on things. I'll probably have him on the podcast. I hope to join him on his. But he had a panel at the Comic-Con, and he invited me up, a few minutes into his panel. He said, Kevin, come on up here with me. And it meant a lot, because I've never, other than speaking to my camera or speaking to this microphone, I've never really had the opportunity to do that. And so Scott gave me that opportunity to join him up there. And while he led it, I was able to chime in with my experiences, talk about, what podcasting means to me and how you can get into it and all that fun stuff. And so, it was the start of something really cool. And I see Scott and I, having some more dialogue in the future, because he knows what he's doing. And he even won an award that got him access to one of these podcast man, I'm gonna have to get him on here to. I don't want to butcher it, but he's making waves in his own world, and I want to see him grow, and he's going to be hopefully joining us and helping us grow and back and forth, and that's what it's all about. Tech Mike, just a guy I met on Instagram, posting some really cool reviews. This is the kind of stuff that might blow up. He's got himself. He's got a full-time job. He's got a day. A family, things like that. But he loves reviewing technical products. He loves reviewing video game products and things, and so you can go to his channel and you can, on his Instagram or whatever, and you can see his reviews and learn about that stuff. I mean, it's selfless. It really is, because he's not getting anything out of it. He's just trying to let you know his opinion on the stuff. And so I like the way he displays his content. I reached out to him. We had some good dialogue back and forth, and he's joined up onto the network. And even so much as I find out afterwards that while his Instagram is still growing, he's already got himself a presence on Twitch. He just doesn't have the time to really do it. So maybe, with the network and the things that we can do there, maybe he'll find some time, and maybe he'll get up and do that and find a benefit. Maybe not. Maybe, real life is serious. So, but I'll encourage him to try. And which leads us next to the Partisan Spy. We've heard him. He's been on the podcast. He's a riot. And we've talked about him a lot, but if you're just new to the podcast, this guy has developed a new system for reviewing games, especially in this landscape where, what's up, Joey Joe? I don't know if you heard the first half, but it was all Joe all the time, man. So I'm just laying into the first half, talking about some stuff, and then the second half is going to be a little bit more of a hopeful interaction with the chat. So let everyone know I'm out here, man. I only got a couple people watching right this second, but let's see. Now we got a couple over there as well. What's up, Tara? What's up, Katrina? How you doing? So, so the Spy, man, he's funny. He does the voice changer. He's live on Twitch every minute of his review. He does 25 hours. Oh, man, I could sleep right now. 25 hours per game when he reviews them, because he finds, and this is his opinion, and for me, I appreciate this opinion a lot. I just don't have the time to do it. But he finds that if you're going to review a game, you got to dedicate a certain amount of time to it to be able to speak on behalf of it. And if he hates a game, he's still going 25 hours deep so that he can give his true opinion, and you can watch him. That's the coolest thing about it. Yeah, absolutely, man. He said, thanks for the support on the chat. And there's no doubt. I mean, seriously, when people, he's not doing this for money. Unless I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it. He's doing it because he has a passion for gaming. And Joe and Spy and I, we share a very similar interest in this. We've talked about it a lot, and some of the other people that have gone over in some of these other chats. You can take a game like Super Meat Boy, which is a phenomenal game in its own right, but it's, and you can put it next to God of War, and they're right next to each other on the all-time greatest games list. And it's just a really weird dilemma. It's hard. It's hard because who gauges how much passion goes into the building of that game, and who gauges, which game is really better? And there's no baseline. There's no industry that regulates this stuff. There's just websites that have gotten really big, like Metacritic and IGN and all that, and they dictate it. And then money gets involved. People come along and say, hey, I'm EA. Can you please showcase our games? And, whether we want to believe it or not, that's how it goes. So the small guys, if Spy gets big and is promoting this stuff, and he's telling it like it is, and he gets big enough, and sometimes telling it like it is means talking, ask him how he felt about World War Z, for example. Well, big business ain't going to let that happen. So they're going to come in and try to stop it. They don't want their games being shit on. They don't want this and that. And that's what he's trying to counter. So he's trying to generate an interest in this type of review so that it kind of musters and carries on in the whole landscape. This isn't just come to my site and watch me review games, which, I mean, he is doing that, but at the same time, it's more of trying to change the thought process on reviews. And so he's working with people to do it. And it's just it's a lot of work. and it's a lot of interesting stuff. And that's why I do go, he says thanks for the support. I say thanks for doing what you're doing. And I hope he keeps it up. You can follow him, and all these other people I'm talking about, part of the network. And so, just keep up with us and we'll talk more about him. We have Walton, USA. My buddy Andy. I'm pushing real hard to get my buddy Andy involved in this stuff. Andy he's a marketing guy. He's a lifelong marketing guy. And he sees big marketing type things. He's got a business that he focuses on some bigger marketing industry type stuff. And I'm trying to work with him. We've always, we've gone to the gym together. We've talked a lot about different things. We got to do this. We got to do that. And so I'm doing this network thing and I'm saying, you know what? It's not always about capturing the most money. It's not. There is a lot changing in this industry in the next year, in my opinion. And we'll talk a lot about that as the weeks come. But with Google stepping into this landscape, it is going to make an impact. Google does not come in at the way that they're coming in. When they're accepting money, it's a huge difference, right? When Google takes money, things change. The whole industry can change. But when Google just is testing something out that's free, like Google Hangouts or Google this or Google that, you'll see that stuff come and go and then maybe roll into other things that they work on. But when Google says we're getting into the video game industry and they're dedicating server space, server time, development costs, like up the ass, it's like, this is going to change the landscape. And I know it because I got invited to that, closed beta for the Assassin's Creed game, not realizing what was going on. And at the same time, I got invited to an Amazon version of a closed beta of the same exact thing, cloud gaming. And we saw it happen in this generation with some of the cloud gaming where, like PlayStation Now, PS Now, you can jump in and play some of the older games live. Like, you don't have to download really anything. It's all out there. But we all use Google, and if you don't, you're not on purpose. You're purposefully avoiding it. But Google knows what you're thinking before. See, you hear that beep? Cancel. Google knows what they're doing. And so as you're talking, they're already formulating a response. As you're typing, they already have your results in front of you. They have mastered the transmission of data to a point where it's the normal person cannot even imagine. Their data centers are secret. They're locked down as good as the government's data centers are. And it's not just a casual thing. They are, when they get into it, they are really they're trying to rule the world, in my opinion. And so now if you think about all the different areas that Google has their hands in, finances, they have their hands in search results of almost every major thing in the world, but they don't have gaming data. Or if they do, they probably have to pay for it. So for example, all the traffic, when you boot up your Xbox, there's no Google going in between your controller and the Xbox and the Microsoft servers. That's all done outside of their reach. And you got the PlayStation, Sony, Nintendo, all these systems. You have to pay for them. You have to dive in, and you have to, you're in your own silo now. And even with Steam and Origin and all these different businesses are popping up with their own silos. And Google doesn't have access to that without paying for it, I'm sure. And now they're like, we have a free system called Google Stadia. You don't even have to have an account, or you don't even have to have a subscription with us. You can play at 1080p for free. Just bring your PlayStation controller. We don't care. A lot of people are skeptical of this. I'm not. I feel like they're probably tried and true. They're tested. There'll be some hiccups, I'm sure, but they'll figure them out. And so, yeah, these guys, there's a lot going on. The landscape is changing. And I'm talking with my buddy Andy about ways to help the little guy, the little girl, like the new streamers, because it's going to be massive. It's going to grow. And these kids of today who all they do is watch streams and YouTube and this and that, as they get older and go to high school and college, they're not going to change and start watching cable TV. They're going to push for more of a world where it's this instant access and instant, I don't know, it's just going to be more of a world like this. And it's going to get more that way every day until something else comes along. But it's on the table. This is the next generation of content, whether ABC, NBC, Fox, whether they like it or not. And they all get into the landscape, but none of them have really sat down and figured it out. Twitch, YouTube Live, streaming, Instagram Live, all that stuff is the future. Kids are dedicating their time to that, and they're not paying attention to what's on the screen, of the big screen. They're looking at the little screen. And so, well, you know, Andy's got a job. He's got to pay for his bills. He's got to do this and that. So he's got to focus on this bigger stuff. But one of the things we're trying to think about is the concept of how these people really don't have a whole lot of money to spend, but they want to because they really want to turn it into something profitable, or at least something part-time that they can do. Maybe there's ways, and we don't know the answer yet. We haven't come up with one, but I'm bringing them aboard to think about it. And it's not to, you know, capture everybody's money or anything like that. It's just to think, if you want to advertise your product, what's the best way? All I know right now at the prices I'm willing to pay is to jump on Instagram and throw up a post and boost it, or do it on Facebook. It gets little to no return. It's not valuable at all. Not in the whole scheme of things. Maybe you get lucky and one person sees you and they have a big following and they like what you got, but that's like a drop in the hat. That's not real. And so there's got to be ways, and maybe we'll come up with something, maybe we won't. But his brand is called Spec Target, and hopefully we can use that in a different way. And if not, if he's not the right person for it, he'll move on. We'll find somebody else. Jennifer Beast, she's part of a group called the O&O Network, and she's got a huge following, and she is she streams games like I'm gonna get it wrong, but Overwatch and things like that. And she just recently did a 24-hour stream where she sat there for 24 hours and people popped in and out, and that's not an easy thing to do, and she dedicated herself to doing that. She's obviously working hard to get in touch with her audience, and so she happened to join up with us, and it's awesome to have her. And she has a really great personality, and it's cool to see how she's already taken her audience to where she is today. And I imagine that she's going to be soaring to new heights in the future, because when you have that kind of captivation and you can pull that kind of group of people in, there's something there, right? And so I'm happy to have her as part of the group. My buddy Adam. All right. So DJ Adam, he DJ'd my wedding, and I've been friends with him for quite some time. Working back when I worked in the service industry, working at restaurants and stuff. This guy is awesome as a human, but he is also one of the smartest people you will ever walk up to, and he doesn't even know it. I mean, he probably knows he's not dumb, but at the same time, he's been to thousands of concerts. He's seen certain bands hundreds of times. And he has dedicated his entire life to going to the shows that he wants to be at. So he stays working in the service industry, so he has a flexible schedule, and he just flies or drives to wherever. He wants to see Kiss at Madison Square Garden. He lives in Florida. He'll see Kiss in Madison Square Garden. He'll go to the specific show he wants to. But he takes it 10 steps further. It's not just that he's gone to so many shows and he's experienced all this. He fucking remembers every one of them. And he ain't bullshitting. He remembers who was with him. He remembers like the time of day the concert was. He remembers the set that they did. It's amazing. He's like an encyclopedia. And so while some people can say, I really love music, Adam is an expert in his own right. As a fan and as a concert goer, there's not many people who can say that they've been to as many shows as him that don't work there at these places. And so I have encouraged him to talk about those experiences, because when he gets going, he's also a good storyteller. And so I was like, man, podcasting is for you, for real. Get a show about music. I mean, I'm not a big music guy. I do love going to music shows. I love going to comedy shows. I will enjoy every second of it. But I don't always think to throw on the music, and I don't always think to put the headphones on and listen to audio. I used to, but as I got older, I just, started getting like an old man and turning on podcasts instead. But this guy has a lot to say, and he's just not into the technology like I am. So, I'm trying to teach him the Discord, trying to teach him what Twitch is. And if we have some time once we get started with him, maybe we'll have him on the show. I'd love to, but I think he's more inclined to just do his own show, and we all go listen there because he's amazing. And then we have Play PSVR. So we have Adam and Alex. I was on their podcast probably 8 to 10 months ago. We've had Alex on our podcast, and we definitely want to do more collaboration with them because I love VR, and maybe this is why Joe left the podcast, right, Joe? Now you got the VR, you're humble, and you don't want to talk about it. But we'll get Joe on to talk about his experiences with the VR because he finally got it. His daughter and his son are playing it, and they're streaming. You can probably watch them right now. They're probably streaming something like that right now, and he's jumped right in head first with it. Beat Saber sells it. Beat Saber sells that VR. But these guys talk about everything on VR. So Play PSVR, the podcast, they don't hold shit back, okay? When you want to go listen, like even if they get a free copy of a game, they absolutely tell it like it is. Now, Alex has a more, I don't know what the right word is because I don't think I'm not, I find myself to be critical when it comes to playing games, but I'm more open to enjoying it, right? I'm not going to, if I have steak, I don't care if it's a little too well done or a little, I'm not worried about that fine line. Is it good or is it not? And then you have Adam who, he just shits on games left and right. And it's funny, but he's serious about it. Like he takes it seriously in that if he's expecting something and he gets something else, he's going to talk about it, especially if they're advertising it that way. And so I love listening to those guys. They have a great banter. You can tell they're good friends. And they always deliver every week with really good VR content. You get all the news, all the details, and they are one of the first partners that I've ever had in this podcasting industry. One of the first people I reached out to. And, I had some feedback for them, and they took it. They replied. We contacted each other. We ended up chatting back and forth. And I listen to their podcast every single week. One of the few. So, because I just don't have time, but I definitely listen to them. And then we have a few other people who just haven't gone back to me yet, but they are planning on being part of this. So we got J to B. He is a friend of mine, Jerry. You've heard him on the podcast before. He actually does the intro. So if you listen on the on your podcast app and you hear that intro at the beginning, that's Jerry, right? He's a full-time worker, but he has an aspiration for voiceover work and doing that kind of stuff, and he has the voice for it. So I asked him to do our intro. This is the Backlog podcast with Kevin. That. And, I pick his brain. I bug him all the time. Hey, can you change this? Can you tweak that? And he's always willing to. He's one of the friendliest guys I've ever met. Went to Vegas with him in January. And, when I lived near him, when we both lived in Tampa together, I really wish that I spent more time hanging out with him because he's just a really good person. Going back to like with Joe. And as you get older, you hesitate a little, or I hesitate a little to let people in as much. And then you find out in the long run that they're really great people. And so Jerry's one of those people. Joe's one of those people. And I'm not going to mention anyone else because they haven't gotten back to me yet, and I don't know if they're fully dedicated and being part of it. But thank you for all listening for that half-hour discussion on the network. I plan on, for those of you who are part of the network who read this, who hear this, and you're still wondering what the hell's going on, it's going to be explained soon just how we can all benefit from this and influence each other and grow. The whole point of this for me is that networking. I want people to hear the podcast, so I hope that these people who are joining part of this network tune in at some point. That's a hope of mine, but that's not the only reason I'm doing it. So I hope everyone who is part of this gets something out of it. And I hope that the people watching the podcast and listening to the podcast can also get something out of it. So, Comic-Con, I'll talk about that real quick, and then I'm going to open the floor up So if you're watching live right now, you can send people in to troll me. You can send people in to say hello. If you don't feel like it, don't worry about it. But I'd like more people in the chat if you can. So I'm looking at the Twitch chat, but you can also hit me up on Facebook, on Mixer, and YouTube at the Backlog Pod. What's up, 10 Best Gamer, Zach? Yeah, it's weird because on Mixer, I don't know how that stuff is displayed and how people find me there, but there's been a bunch of people reaching out on Mixer. Ocala Comic Con, right? I got this tie there. That's why I'm dressed up in my little white shirt here, but look at that badass tie, right? And this is what I love about the Twitch. So those of you who are listening and not watching, you can't see the tie, so you're going to have to go somewhere and pull it up on your phone, the Backlog Pod. So twitch.tv/the Backlog Pod. But, okay, so went to the Comic-Con, I met Scott, met a lot of other really great people, and I did talk about it on a stream last week about what, how fun it was and everything, but for the podcast and the sake of the podcast, I want to kind of highlight it. They had a cosplay contest, and I've never seen one live, but it was the same as you'd see online or whatever, or when you go on, if you see someone post about a Comic-Con or whatever, and you see all these people dressed up. We're not talking, Halloween costumes. These are people who spent hours, days, weeks putting together immaculate costumes. And there were a couple that really, really stood out. And luckily, they were some of the ones that were put up on the pedestal at the end and talked about. Well deserved. And so one of the ones was this girl, and she dressed as Hellgirl. And again, you'll see her stuff if you go to the Instagram, but damn, I mean, the color red that she used, and she had her whole body painted, and she had the prosthetic arm. That girl took it to another level. She's 17 years old. She's been doing it for 5 or 6 years of her life, and as she gets older, she's really going to have a place in this world. If you don't know what cosplay is, it's dressing up as characters from different shows, generally the anime, and just some of the I don't know the right description, but really it's you pick a character. You can cosplay anything. I could cosplay Doc Brown from frickin' Back to the Future, or the guy from Lost. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. You pick a character and you be them. That is kind of like Halloween in that sense, but you go the extra mile. You be the character. You take pictures with people. You just really get into it. And so people take it seriously. They enjoy it. They have a lot of fun. But the one thing I took out of the whole experience, the whole weekend, was the positivity. It's almost gross, but it was awesome in that there was no one giving odd looks to people. There was no one talking trash. It was all telling everyone how awesome they looked and meaning it. Like truly explaining, or truly saying like, hey, you look good. And I don't know. It's just it's awesome to see when people go out of their way to do that, to really get into it, but to also take that to the next level and give encouragement to others. So it was really cool. It was a really positive experience. And sorry, I'm getting messages over here. Buddy, you got to get over in Twitch chat, man. So, okay. So I met, and I'm going to butcher his name, I'm sorry, but I've been trying to remember all week exactly how to pronounce it. Mitsuhiro Arita. And he is one of the original artists of Pokemon. Now, being one of the original artists of Pokemon and having your name on a lot of cards, and even the ones that were pre-first version, like he was drawing them before they were a thing, the concept art. He's a big deal in certain worlds, and his life has changed since Pokemon Go. And when you get to this event, he's the main guy. Now, I didn't know much about him. I'm not a Pokemon guy. To be honest, I've I did Pokemon Go, and I know who some of the characters are, but I've never really invested a lot of time. I think I was on the cusp of where, that was probably when I was in high school or something, or even younger. The younger kids were into it, and I probably looked at that and thought, oh, that's childish or whatever. And I wish I did get into it more, not just because I met this guy, but because it's a really serious, it's a thing that a lot of people really, they start talking about it, and they're so passionate about it. And I love seeing people passionate about things, and I want to be involved with that kind of stuff. But I don't know. So I'm sitting there, ordering a beer at the bar, and there's a guy eating, and I'm like, that guy kind of looks like the guy from the flyer. Take a picture of him, send it to my wife. She says, I don't know if that's him. And then I realize quickly that it is. And I'm not going to get into the whole conversation. There was a weird guy standing next to me who he had a case like handcuffed to his wrist. It had expensive cards in it, and he was trying to get Mitsuhiro's attention so that he could get all his cards signed. And he does that on behalf of the guy's fan base. They send him the cards because he's going to the Comic-Cons, following him around the country. It's a little bit stalkerish and weird, but hey, it's his job. It's what he chooses to do, and I don't knock him for it. But he also did reach out and offer to buy Mitsuhiro a drink to get him to stop. And so that's the reason I was able to have a 2-hour conversation with that man. Meanwhile, everyone else is staring at us like wondering how we had the opportunity to have this conversation with him. And he was bored. He travels across the world solo, and he got to take a load off and actually be a part of a normal conversation, because I didn't give a shit who he was. I honestly didn't. He seemed bored. He was a nice guy. We were chatting, and I was interested in his experiences, not like, how many signatures have you signed, and how much money do you make? I don't care about that. I care about, when you're signing autographs and there's someone who's like really smelly and he wants to give you a hug, do you do it or do you back away? That's the kind of questions I like to ask. And so he was so humble. This guy honestly, truly does not see himself as a famous person, or that he shouldn't be famous. He looks at the other people and says they have great art too. Why am I the one with a line? He used to go to the Comic-Cons before Pokemon Go, and he wouldn't get a line of, hundreds of people. He would sit in the corner, wait his turn, and then leave. No one knew who he was. And all of a sudden, with the internet and everything going on, people realize that this guy's been at these shows, and now he's getting swarmed. So we got into a really good discussion about pants and how American jeans are now integrating, what's it called? Not rayon, like spandex type material into the men's jeans. Well, just 5% is all you need, and now you can bend over and touch your damn toes. Doesn't matter how fat you are. It's great. And so that's the kind of shit we were talking about. And I had a lot of fun because in Asia they've been able to wear freaking skin tight, stretchy jeans for quite some time. I said that's a trend I'm glad's coming to America. On top of that, we started talking about Disney because the other guy was mentioning, oh, I'm going to follow you to Disney next week. And I said, oh, have you ever been to Pandora? Have you ever ridden on the Flight of Passage? Have you ever just walking around and taking in these new areas? Or do you plan on seeing the new Star Wars area? It's closed off right now because it's being built, but you should go tell them that you want to see it. You're famous. You should do that so you can get in. And his whole thing was like, no, I don't want special treatment. I don't want to be put in front of everybody. I wish I could just walk around and be normal, but I can't. He just kept saying like he can't do that. And so I followed his Twitter, and there's a lot more to the conversation, but I don't want to drown the whole thing with that. I followed him on Twitter. I sent him a message with a picture of him and I, because we got a picture together, and I just said, hey, thanks, man. It was great meeting you. This guy is humble, a little blurb. And he retweeted it to his fan base. I would say his fan base in Japan. He retweeted it in Japanese. He did not share it in a way that was necessarily to promote me. It was to let his people know that I had good words to say about him. Very respectful way of doing it. And it was awesome to see. Like, it made me feel good because I'm like, wow, I had a really good talk with that guy. He was really humble. And just these little words from a little guy like me can go a long way. So it's a special thing if you think about it. that you could make an impact on someone's life, even if they have 300-400 people standing in line to sign their autograph. They'll remember the little thing more so than the other things. Like if you think, oh, I'm going out of my way for you, man. I'm coming across the country following you around with a briefcase full of your fans' cards so that you sign. He understands it's about money. It's about, might be passion, the people who want the cards, but he just wants to be a human being. He doesn't want to be special. I mean, he's happy he is, but he's like, it kind of almost feels insulting. He said it's like a third person. He sees himself almost like a movie, and it's cool, but he wants to be able to get on the frickin' Pandora, and he can. So the next day he did basically like 20 tweets throughout the whole day, and it was him at Pandora getting hammered, walking around amongst the people, waiting in line like he wanted to rather than skipping the 4-hour line, getting on the friggin' rides, and just being a human. And maybe it had nothing to do with my encouragement. I kind of feel like it did, and it feels really good. It was really cool to see him take up the the desire rather than get uncomfortable and skip the line. He just did it. He had a good time. He was smiling, and his last post was like, every time I get in line, I have to chug my beer, so I'm getting really drunk. It was just funny. You have to translate it because it's in Japanese. And so, it was fun. And that guy was a really humble guy. So if you're a fan of his and you're into his artwork, he created Charizard and drew the first Charizard and a few other key cards. Know that he's a really good guy, at least in the brief interaction I had with him. He could have been an asshole. He wasn't. And then even so afterwards, the words that a small podcaster from America had to say really resonated with him. And so I'm a fan of his, even though I didn't really know much about him prior to. So what's next for the podcast? We're not stopping, right? You see this logo right here. Where is it? Right here. Okay, it says season 2. Next week is the start of a new year. We've done this for a year. And Joe, if you're still listening, thank you. Thank you for the year. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for getting me to where I'm at. And we'll see you on the podcast again. But we got a new logo. The logo's spitting hot. I mean, I love it. And it's getting attention. People are actually reaching out and saying, hi and stuff where they never did. Joe, again, if you're still listening, I've got a couple of bits of feedback where people are saying they're loving the podcast. Well, that includes you, right? Up until this point, if they're telling me today that they love it before I did this one episode, you too, man. So thank you. There's a lot coming. I've been working on the side with a lot of different people for a long time, just trying to come up with, ways to get them to integrate into the podcast. I want to talk more with my cousins on the MMA stuff. I want to definitely get a hold of some of the folks from the network who I know have things to talk about. We got a whole list of people that we can talk about. I want to get Courtney on to talk about, her desires for retro gaming and what got her to actually sit down and create a channel to do that, as opposed to just do it as a passion and for fun. I want to talk more with all the different members of the Leaky Squad that are, some of the leaders of that group, the creators, sorry, like Acid and Leaky Crawfish, and those guys are, and even Tuxedo King, who is looking to maybe do a podcast of his own, and they're all super awesome, but they have their own fan base that they talk to every single day. I want to hear about, what got them fired up, what got them started, and got about I'm just looking down the list here, sorry, because my attention's this way, but there's a bunch of people. Jennifer Beast, definitely want to pick her brain about look, when I see someone has 10,000 people watching them on Instagram, that blows my mind. I'm almost at 2, okay? So if you're not following us on Instagram, at the Backlog Pod. If you're not following us on Twitter, do it. I'm taking that seriously now. I didn't before, and maybe if I did a year ago, we'd have 10,000. But I see someone with 10,000, they've done something right, and that's significant to me. 10,000. I know that we're a product in the eyes of data miners, in the eyes of marketers. The second you have 1,000, you've hit a new number, and they're gonna, they're now observing your audience. When I say they, it's anybody. It's Amazon. It's Walmart. It's anybody. Because that's the smart thing to do. We're influencers. That's the term that has been given to us. We're content creators. And so the second you have 1,000, you're being looked at. That's why Fortnite had that rule. You can't be a content creator. You can't be a Fortnite creator with a code unless you surpass 1,000 on any social media. It doesn't matter which one. You need 1,000 followers. Well, it could be fake. You can go buy Instagram followers. But what happens to those accounts is over time they get banned because they get found. And so you might have 1,000, but then next month it might be 750 and eventually, 600 or whatever, and a bunch of them will resonate. The reason I added as many people as I could is because that's how you get started. You have to have if people see that you're trying to add them and you're trying to spread the word, you have 30 people, they're going to be less inclined to follow you. But if you have a blue check mark or if you have 1,000 people, they might listen. It's just the way the world goes. But 10,000? I mean, Jen, seriously, you're gonna be a big deal. And so, again, I have so many things to ask all these people, and I want to be a part of their journey in any way that I can, whether it's just watching them go or participating and giving them feedback or just hearing them work things out in their own head. And so I really look forward to that. But I also have some folks that are in industries. Like there's a website called IGDB.com, Internet Gaming Database, much like IMDB.com. And I've been in contact with them because I think that as a website, it's a phenomenal website. And we're the Backlog. And if they partner with us, and I hope to work with them, maybe not. If they don't want to, I don't know. But I want a website that would be perfect for us to say, make your backlog here. And they do it right. And I've been in contact with them. I want to get them on the show, talk about the development process and what got them to do it, because they're not asking for money. They say that they're not going to put ads on their site. It's like, well, then you're just doing this for passion, right? That's what I'm doing. I want to talk to these people because it takes a lot of work to do this kind of stuff. And so I plan on getting at least one of those guys on the show. And I think if you haven't done it yet, go to IGDB.com and create an account and add your games, the backlog. We can become friends. It's somewhat of a social site where I can see your backlog if we're friends and you can see mine. So you can comment on things, but it's really cool. You can go into a game and see all the voice actors and the developers. It's not just, hey, this game created by this company. It's the details. It's just like IMDb. You can go in and pick it apart. So those guys really, they resonate with me. I think that something like that is important, especially when you have backlogs like we do. I have 200 games on mine, and so I've put them all in there, and I can look through it. Then we also have the Fit XR people, and they gave us the creator a free copy to review Box VR. And it's awesome. It's like Beat Saber, but it's a fitness game, and it kicks your ass. My wife, myself, Joe, his wife, we've played it. We talked about it a couple times on the show. I need to do a review, and sorry if you're watching, and I told you I was going to do it by now. So many things going on, but at the same time, we're playing it. And like Beat Saber, it's a rhythm-based game, but rather than holding swords and reaching and doing this, you have to get to these balls that are coming virtually, and you gotta do the move, and it's a lot more intense than Beat Saber from a workout perspective. And it's funny because you go through and they have you basically pick a workout regimen, and you choose like a trainer or whatever, and it's like, oh, you can do the 3-minute one or the 40-minute one. Like, they're not fucking around. This game is all about fitness. It's not designed for the fun. It's designed for the fitness of it. And there are some studies he sent me that I've reviewed where people have lost 20, 30 pounds just playing these games. And when we played it, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that that's so easy. The only thing that VR has wrong with it, and I really want Adam and Alex from the Play PSVR to come on here and talk a little bit more, is the cables. If you were disconnected from the cables and still had the same experience, it would be revolutionary. To a point where you couldn't, like, if that mask was a little bit smaller and didn't move when you did this, and you didn't have a cable. I mean, I'm playing Beat Saber the other day, and I'm flailing around, and my arm just kept getting caught in the cable. And I have my VR in a big room now. It's like my living room with vaulted ceilings, so I can't have like I had before, where I had a cable system, and my cable came from the top down behind my neck. And it was just these little things I got for a couple bucks on eBay, but it made playing the VR significantly easier. But I can't do that in my living room, and the living room is really the only place I can play the VR. So, at least the way I play it, because man, when I'm playing Beat Saber, it's like, if you haven't played Beat Saber, it's a phenomenal game, and I think almost everyone who's played it at my house has purchased it. Like, except for someone just the other day came over and played it, and they're not in the market for any video games, but they loved it. So, it even goes to show you that even people who have no intention of having a video game system, they're like, I want to do that again. Beat Saber is ridiculous. And I think that is a game in itself that sells the system by itself. It's already pre-bundled, but I mean, like, Sony should step up and just make it happen. There needs to be more. They just did Imagine Dragons add-on on the PC. They have side loading, and people can create their own tracks and stuff. So there's thousands and thousands of songs. But on the PlayStation, you're limited to 40 or so, and you have to buy the add-on packs and stuff. But it's still worth it to me. It's still worth the price of the game, which is $20 or $30. Goes on sale. Pick it up if you have a VR. But yeah, the box VR. Sorry, I skipped over that. I'd buy it. That game is phenomenal too. It's really good if your intentions are to get sweaty. I mean, it works. I was sweating, dripping sweat playing Beat Saber, dripping sweat playing box VR. My wife couldn't walk for 2 days because of her legs, because you're doing lunges and crunches and trying to get away from things coming at you on the box VR game. I want to have the developer of that game, or the marketing guy, whoever, whatever I can get. I want him to come on the podcast and talk about it. So rather than just bullshit with my buddy, which is a lot of fun, trust me, it's a lot of fun, but I want to see real growth over the next year in the podcast. So I want to get, instead of, if I can't have Joe, it's going to be people in the industry that we're trying to get a hold of. So the developers, the this, that, the other thing. It's possible. It's super easy to get a hold of some of these people. It's just having the time, having the the scheduling and all that. And that leads me to you all, right? We only have a couple people in chat right now. I'm looking at the different places that people can chat. And so, let's see. I'm going to try to pull over my Facebook chat, because a couple of y'all are on Facebook. So say hi if you're there, if you're watching, you're not shy. I won't call on you if you don't want me to. But let me know you're out there, and we'll turn this portion into more of a dialogue if there's anyone who wants to go back and forth. Spy, you still out there? I know some people dropped because they got their own gaming and their own streaming to do, and let's see. And if there's nobody there right now to chat, or no one wants to converse, I'm not going to make it awkward, all right? So I'll just stop asking here in a few minutes. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's give it 2 minutes. I'm going to put it on Be Right Back. There's Spy. Nice. Spy, you got any... actually, I'm not going to put it on Be Right Back because I got a person. All right. Any topics you want me to jump on? Any questions, comments, concerns? Any news? Any of that? Come up with something, please. And, writing the game evaluation for the Sinking City. All right, so we're going to get some live feedback from the Spy. I've seen you play that game, and I've seen a bunch of other people playing the Sinking City. What do you think of it? What is your, what's a highlight point about this game that has intrigued you? And maybe if you could summarize it in a a buy or don't buy type thing. And I know your reviews are much deeper than that, but help me out. Let me know. My wife got me a beer today or yesterday from a place that I'm not going to butcher everything here, but I don't know the name of it. But the beer is really good, and it's like a cinnamon vanilla dark beer. And if you're watching the stream, you can see it here. It's just really thick, right? It's delicious. It's like a meal almost. And I had it. I just moved my desk, my whole operation. I moved it from one side of the room to the other because I needed to reduce the length of my USB cables, to be honest. I had all these stream decks and all these different things, and the second you go more than 15 feet with a USB 3.0 cable, you start to lose power. And so I'd be talking on my microphone or using my web camera, and it's cutting in and out and flickering. And so I had to move my desk, and because I moved my desk, now it's in a different spot, and that's why I have to look this way to see my other screens. I haven't really gotten super comfortable yet, but I will. I'll adapt in the new spot. I might have to turn my desk 180 degrees just to be able to see the screens and stuff. I don't know. I think I might have to do that. But that all being said, I had my mug full to the top of nice, delicious beer. I reached for my mouse. I went to turn and grab something. I knocked that beer all over my new $150 fucking keyboard, and it's not working right now. So I'm very pissed, partially because of my stupidity, and then the other part is because of my stupidity. If that keyboard, I ran it to the tub, ran it under the water, but when I stood up with the keyboard, which had a full beer in it, it fell on the floor, and it's dark beer, white rug, and I had just moved my plastic floor mat. I wasn't using it, and so I'm looking down right now. I'll tell you what, nature's miracle works, and it's crazy. So if you're ever trying to get a stain out of something, nature's miracle, holy shit. All right, so let's see. You're hearing this here first live from the Partisan Spy, everybody. The Sinking City. I've seen a bunch of people playing this on Twitch. They're streaming it. They're talking about it. I haven't done a single ounce of research on it other than to pop into Spy's stream and watch him play for a few minutes here and there. And he says, you need to read and listen to a story. If you're going to play this game, you gotta take a step back and you gotta be able to pay attention to the story. That's what I'm gathering out of this. This is my thought process on his thought process. It's a slow-paced game, and you need to love searching for clues and solving cases. Kind of reminds me, just in this sense, of I have it right here. Hold on. Where is it? Maybe I don't have it right here. What was that game, Spy, where you're a detective? I thought I had it right here. Game with an L. But, let's see. So you have to search for clues, solve cases, and the focus of the game is the story. If you love the story, you will love the game. Same work for the opposite. If you don't like the story, you're probably not going to like this game. On another topic, he has an idea. And Spy, I'm always down for an idea. Hit me up tomorrow, man. Tonight is going to be, I'm going to do some additional stuff. And if you're part of the Backlog network, when I'm done, I get ahead of myself, and I always say, stay tuned for tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to be done. I think, realistically, I could have it done by tomorrow. It's not going to be done by tomorrow, because it's already 9 o'clock. And I got to take the audio from this, post it, all that stuff. LA Noire. Yes, that's the game I was thinking of. And I did have it right up here, but I must have moved it from my desk when I just moved everything. That's a hell of a game. and that's what it did remind me of when I was watching it, was LA Noire. So, sorry, just making sure that we're good over there. But yeah, I have some really cool stuff coming. I've been working really hard on learning Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere, and for people who are willing to take the moment, even if it's just a moment, to come join up to my network and our network. It's our network now, but it's my channel and I have control over it. So it means a lot, and I want to give back. And so stay tuned. I'm not giving anything away yet, but stay tuned. If you're part of the network, get in while the getting's good, And so I think y'all have something coming that is definitely worthy of your time for me, worthy of me to dedicate some time for you. I don't know if any of that comes out good. All right. Well, that's about all we got from a chat perspective. We're hitting an hour and a half of chat, maybe a little bit less because there was some time at the beginning. Amanda Williams has joined. Look, the cool thing about this, about being able to do this live, is I'm looking and there's people popping in and popping out. Whether they stay or go, they're hearing about it, and I love it. And I don't doubt that before long there's going to be 100 people in this chat and 1,000 people in this chat. I'm going to push. That's my goal. I want to push. I've got to fix some branding. I got to obviously fix some of my green screen, right? The lighting on it, because there's a shadow here. The shadow makes the green screen, not work very good. But, and then one of the other things, and I'll finish with this, is because this is a more, progress-oriented discussion. We're going to be way deeper into games and things like that starting next week. Next week starts season 2 of the Backlog podcast. Season 2, we're taking it to the next level. But we're going to get into how people can make their streams better. We're going to get into how people can make their content better, how they can work with each other to make stuff like this, which to some people ain't all that hard. They have the tools and the resources to do it, and other people don't. And it's the little things that could make your streams and your content stand out more. And I am no expert. I'm just dabbling. I'm pushing the limits. I'm taking the time to learn this stuff so that I can share it with people, and so that my own stuff looks really cool, because I see people like Dr. Disrespect and some of these other content creators that I stick around for because of their quality of their content. And I don't know. I also have a really cool tie. I think that is worthy of a couple of, follows. And then I have a cool logo. That's worth a follow or two. And we're nearing 2,000 people on Instagram, where I haven't really been pushing the Twitter, but we have about 1,300 people there. And thank you to every single one of you, whether you're a bot, a fake, whatever, whether you're a brand and you're just trying to get your own name out there. Thank you. The fact that out of almost 2,000 people, there's got to be a percentage of people who actually enjoy what I do. And to those people who do, I appreciate you. I appreciate Joe and his commitment over the past year. I appreciate Alex and his readiness to jump in and be part of the podcast. And it's not going unnoticed. You're gonna be for sure. Don't return that microphone. Same with Adam. Wouldn't it be a funny thing if Adam became a regular on the podcast, Joe? Think about that. No, I'm kidding around. I'm fucking with you. But he could be. I think that people like that, who have things to say and have feelings about what they're playing and what they're doing, those people are the people I want to be talking to. And then we're going to be talking more. I'm not going to dive deep here, but I love conventions is all I'm going to say. I love going to the conventions when I did t-shirts and seeing all the different technology that's out there. And then I've gone to gaming type things. I went to a UFC convention. Seeing people get excited about stuff and come together as a group, it's awesome. I want to start my own convention. as silly and as crazy and as, you know, what the hell are you thinking as that really is, and how far can you really take it? Well, I'm going to be 100% honest. There's a lot of really active, really hardworking, really energetic people that I've met over the past couple of months. And if it's just us sitting around a keg, drinking beers, talking about our stories, then Convention 1 will be worthwhile. But if we can put something together, even if it's not that big and it's not that elaborate and not that delicious, it's a start. It's a start of something. And not going to lie, it's probably financially worthwhile if you can get something really going well. I think I'd be good at running a convention. Maybe I'll bomb. Maybe it'll suck. Maybe I won't even do it. Maybe next week I'll think that's just too much work. But today, I'm thinking sometime in the early 2020, we're going to find a spot. We're going to get a room, a hall at some hotel. I'll work with the hotel coordinators. I'll get a discount for you if you come on down. And we're going to have the first annual Backlog-a-con. And we're going to get content creators, and we're going to get people who can... Content creation is anything. Whether you're writing a book or you're a brand on television, I mean, you're content creation. But the space that we're in, this is the future. So we're not going to be bringing cable TV in, okay? But if you have a presence, a significant presence online, anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Discord, then we'll talk. And the network that we're building together will be a huge focus on this convention, if it actually happens. You can help me by telling me what you would expect if you saw a convention like mine. Like, what would make you go? What would get you pumped up about it? If I said to you, there's a convention near your house, and you are, you know, it's $15 to get in. I don't want it to be expensive, but there's costs that come along with it, so I'll need to ask for something. And you know, what would you pay $15 for? What would have to be there? I think I have an idea, but I'd love to, rather than tell you what I think, I'd love to hear what people have to say. So if you're listening to this podcast and you know, even if you're have no intention of coming to the convention or coming to any convention, if you have no intention of, you know, really getting too deep into it, it doesn't hurt to shoot me a tweet or an Instagram message, or join our Discord, which you can find on thebacklogpod.com. You can email us at thebacklogexposed@gmail.com. Just let us know. Let me know what you would want. Who would you want? Who would you like to see there? Content creators can be anything. A Twitter person on Twitter, or a ninja broadcasting Fortnite. I'll try. I'll reach out to everybody I can. Jay and Silent Bob, they do a podcast. That's content creation. Hell, maybe you can get Kevin Smith on, or Jason Mewes, or maybe no one famous would come, and maybe it would just be a bunch of really cool people sitting around. And again, like I said, I'll get a keg. Fuck it, right?